Hi, it's Elizabeth Willits here from Investing in Women. Welcome to this week's Facebook and LinkedIn Live. I'm delighted because today I'm going to be chatting with Adriana from Zero to Dream Job, which is a career coaching company. We'll be talking all about how to discover your hidden strengths and find out if you're actually utilizing them as well. So thank you so much, Adriana, for joining us today. If people are logging on, if you can let us know if you can hear us all okay, give us a like or an emoji, that would be fab. But yeah, we're going to be chatting today all about how to identify your secret strengths or not so secret strengths and find out if you are utilizing them as well. So thank you so much, Adriana, for joining us today. I'm so excited because before we went live, we were just chatting about, because I did a skills test thing recently and it was really interesting, and I bought the book and we were sort of saying, you know, I found out supposedly what my strengths are, but then it's all about how do you use them and make sure that you're utilizing them properly in the workplace and at home. And so it's going to be, I'm so interested because I've literally just done this skills test. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, so before we start talking about how to identify your secret strengths, could you give us a bit of an overview as to who you are and what you do and what Zero to Dream Job is?
Yeah, so I am a career coach, but I have a long history leading up to that point when I realized that I could be really good at career coaching, and especially because, at school and when I started working, I didn't feel there was a particular area that where I would be great at. So I naturally fell into finance and economics and working in accounting and field.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But back in 2013, I think that was in my early 30s, I found myself in a stage where I really questioned if finance is what I wanted to do for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Um, worked for a fantastic company, but I was putting so much pressure on me in terms of performance, working very long hours without anyone actually asking or demanding the hours. So
Yeah.
I realized that I was leading into a burnout and I had to do something about it. And it was the time when actually I came across this topic of the talents.
Okay. So you did it first of all as like a student then?
Indeed, indeed. So what I did, I think I realized after 2.5 years of being promoted into a manager in accounts payables that maybe this is not for me. Maybe leadership is not my way forward,
Yeah.
and I find myself in this place where I just didn't any longer understand what is it that I could do, because the choice I made, obviously I used to love it and all of a sudden I didn't. And
Mhm.
what I didn't know was that I stopped utilizing my talents. As I've started with the role, it was all about the change management and changing the systems and so on, which I really loved because I could learn a lot. And that's one of my top 5 talents, learner, as you might see later on. But as the business settled and the department was a bit more, established, I started to feel really, I would say, tired, exhausted, and I didn't know what was happening. So I decided to resign, and I thought the answer would be to start my own business and do something different, but I didn't know what else to do. So I decided to take on a part-time role, and this is why I really understand the importance of utilizing the your talent, especially when you are working less hours, because you don't want to lose your income, and at the same time you don't want to burn yourself out because all of a sudden you've got less hours to complete the task that you would normally do in 5 days.
Yeah. Okay. So you did a part-time job and then you sort of assessed what you wanted to do. So what was it that led you into career coaching?
It's a quite a long journey. I basically took this test at that time and realized that my strengths were very much in strategic thinking, learning, and so on. So I started to volunteer, and one of my, I would say, natural intuitive things was why not support somebody who already works in coaching and use my business finance skills. So I started to work with a coach, and
Okay.
as I've learned about the coaching, I thought, well, maybe there is something in it for me. So I've took on some volunteering coaching opportunities, and that's what helped me to unlock. And looking back, what I didn't realize at the time was that based on these top talents I had, I started to inquire more about how these talents show up in my life, what they help me achieve. And looking back, I realized I always had my friends coming to ask me about their CV. Is it good enough? Is there something missing? What could I do in my career? It wasn't me who came up with the idea of career coaching. It was actually a colleague of mine who worked in that role with me, and she realized, like, you're really good at this. Have you ever considered this? And I think that's it. That was the beginning of the Zero to Dream job.
Wow. And so so you do career coaching, so what does that involve, like interview coaching, CV, helping people write their CVs?
We do. So I can actually show you in the presentation what we do, and then we can move towards the talents and the topic of how to identify the talents, because this is actually my specialty. I've realized that current talent coaching is a quite wide field that covers a lot of topics, from what to say, help with CV, finding the right job, then let's say how to identify the right skill set and so on. And what I've learned through working with my clients is that some of the people actually were in the fields which were their passions, or they really liked what they do, but they still didn't feel satisfied, or they were underpaid for the work they did because that manager didn't recognize their potential. So
Yeah,
actually, through working with my clients, I thought, okay, talents have helped me. Why don't I try this with my clients?
yeah.
So I've took the training, and we realized that I think half of the clients I worked with initially felt that they want to change their job, or they want to
Based
maybe
on the
change the
result
career
of
path.
their skills.
Exactly. But what we realized is that because they didn't use the talent, and they naturally felt that they were not giving the best in their job, they either felt disengaged or they felt burned down because they were doing things that, they didn't make them happy on one hand, and on other hand, they were doing activities which didn't produce the results. And when they were making suggestions in different areas which were their strengths, that manager would normally don't recognize it, or they didn't know how to bring it forward to the manager, yeah, because they thought, this is not my role, who am I to talk about this? So this is where I started to learn more about how to utilize the combination of 34 talents that Gallup has, researched for decades and decades, and how to make most of them either where you working part-time, or in the field that you really love but you feel burned out, or you are not achieving the earning potential that you could, because you simply don't realize what are the results that you produce using your talents. So
Yeah.
from that,
So this is your first session. If you were booking with you, you basically get somebody, you work with somebody to identify their talents, because that will form the basis of what type of jobs they're going to go for and how they're going to show that in an interview, their skills.
Indeed. On the second slide, I can show you
Yeah,
is actually how I combine all of these, I would say,
yeah,
talents together. So I still work as in my full-time job as a people leader in
yeah,
operations. And on the side of that, I'm spending my time on developing this career coaching business. And what I've realized after a while, and this was very important also, I think, for many coaches, if they're listening, is that when you are starting your own business, you are going with an idea of a service or a product that you want to deliver. But you've got to, at the beginning, really realize where is it that I'm adding the biggest value in the business. And what I realize is that through one-to-one coaching, with job seekers, I've learned what the most common questions were, how they want to work at their own pace. And coaching was not an option for everyone, because they felt that either it's a very fast track, or they might not feel that it's the right thing for them. So that led me to start creating different courses, like vision boards, for instance. So if you have a person who really feels that, I don't know what to do in my career. Is this the right time now to change my career? So I take them through a very holistic exercise on finding their priorities, and from that point, really create the vision how they want to experience their year, for instance. And the third passion of mine that I integrated here is a part of, I would say, maybe a legacy is a very strong word to use, but I really felt called to change beliefs around finding a dream job not being possible. So I've started interview different women who actually landed their dream job, but talk about not just those easy things and the success, but also through the struggles and how they make it financially work. So that's, I would say, the third hat I'm wearing, that talents help me discover my storytelling talent and actually not be afraid of publishing and writing.
Wow, gosh, you're busy because you do all that and you've got your full, is it a full-time job, did you say, or?
It is a full-time job, but what I've learned through talent is that I would say you find once you find your genius zone, you know which task you need to delegate. So, for instance, in my business, I don't do my finance. I have now started working with somebody who can do my marketing and so on. And the same in my full-time job, right? It's I was, and I will show you later on the example of my talent combination. Is that it's not what I found is not about how you manage your time in those 8 hours, but how you manage your energy to produce the results that you want. And you don't always have to do all the work that you think you are supposed to be doing. So if I would say if there are three takeaways that I'd like people to take away from this session today, and we can look at the next slide, is that working with your talents actually helps you to remove the busyness from your life, and it will help you find different avenues how to be more productive, but how to also enjoy your work so you don't feel burnout. So we will cover today what is talent, how you can discover it either through assessment or how to discover it, through observing it yourself and your working life or your personal life, then how it can help you in your career, and maybe also why now is the right time for you to maybe inquire, get curious, and discover for yourself what is your combination of talents and how you can make the most out of it in life.
Oh, wow, I'm so excited that it was so, yeah, it's fascinating when you do it and then things start making sense, about behavior you've had in the past and why you've enjoyed certain things and not other
Indeed.
tasks. So yeah, it's really exciting. So do you move to slide 4?
We can, but I have one more question for you because you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you just did your test recently and bought the book.
Yeah,
So I was curious what inspired you to do that?
because it was when my business is something new, so I bought a business course. It was an online course, and basically the first thing she told us to do on the course was to buy this book, this Gallup book, and identify your strengths. So I bought the assessment, did it, and then it's then knowing what you're good at, a little bit like you just said, and then delegating the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. And actually, I've only just recently done it, but yeah, you're reminding me now to go back. And then I think it did help me then realize, okay, well, I'm good at this stuff, and then I've got somebody now that helps with the marketing that's got more of a creative brain than I have. So
Got it.
yeah,
Perfect. So let's maybe talk about what is talent and how to actually recognize it, because I think one of the common misinterpretation of talent is that people consider talent as a strength, and it isn't entirely the truth. It's not far
okay.
from the truth. So on the next slide, I have actually
Yeah,
explained how Gallup defines talent. Of course, there are many different definitions in the world. Some people call that talent is our a gift, is our natural ability to do something well. But throughout the studies and decades of research, Gallup have actually, I would say, identified that talent is not something we gain or
yeah,
something I would say, acquire, unlike knowledge or skills, where you have to learn a certain set of skills, or where you have to learn to gain knowledge. Talent is actually the opposite. It's not just a fancy word for somebody being really great at sports or in arts or in acting. Everyone is talented, and it is our innate, I would say, pattern of the way how we think, how we feel, how we behave that can
yeah,
be productively applied. What we don't realize is that most of the time Talent is with us every single day, every single minute. Even now, when we are having this interview, your and my talents are working and are working together. Very unlike strength is usually developed through honing either skills or investing time into developing your talent
Okay.
to and turning it into a skill or a knowledge, so you can reach near perfect performance. So strength can be seen more as an ability. Yeah. So, and what often happens is that when we are not familiar with our talent, sometimes we might be overdoing it, or we might not realize, for instance, I am a very fast learner. I've got a learner in my top five. And when I'm with my team, I have to be very mindful that people have a different pace of learning, for instance. So I have to check the pace of the progress and the learning. So when you learn about the talents, you don't just benefit in your own work, but you also learn how to work with others way better, whether it's your colleagues, your manager, or your business partners, your clients. So I hope this makes sense. So
Really, yeah. Sarah says she loves that you said it's not about managing your time, it's about managing your energy. I love that.
yeah, it is, because when you think about, and this was, I think, the breakthrough I had in my part-time job. I basically, when I resigned as a manager, I decided to take a step back and work 3 days a week in a finance role. Yeah, that would be basically, that would pay my bills, so I have the time to discover what I wanted to do. But after 3 months, my manager resigned, and the company offered me to step up and become the manager and the leader. And I thought, well, how can people see obviously something I didn't? And I was quite frightened to go back to a full-time managerial role. So I negotiated to work 4 days a week, but I realized that, they will demand the result, or they will demand is a wrong word. They obviously, I have agreed to be successful in my role. So I had to start thinking how to utilize those 4 days to be really effective. And on top of that, I couldn't stay at work longer, because the 5:30 the company will get shut. You have to get out. So, and I didn't want to get into the old habit of taking the laptop home with me. I really wanted to. I
Yeah,
made a commitment that if I'm there, I'm gonna look at that time. And you cannot extend the time. You can just look at how you are leading yourself, and how, I would say, not just productive you are, but how much you enjoy that 8 hours, what you do. Because often we spend too much time on activities that don't produce any results, or we
yeah,
are not as good as when we focus on something, when we are in alignment with our talent. So hope that makes sense.
absolutely. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so let's then move to the next slide, where we are going to talk about how to recognize talents, right? Because I think it's very popular. And this was one of the first questions I get from my clients, like, Adri, I don't know what to do in my career. Is there a talent assessment I can tell, which is going to tell me what my dream job is? And to be honest, I think there's a very fast track way that can discover your strengths, but it doesn't mean that you have to, I would say, resonate with the results of those talents assessments. So this is why I've started to, I would say, teach or mentor my clients to also understand how to raise their awareness, and how to stop relying on the test as such, but how to observe their talents in either working life or in their personal life, when they are basically at their best, when you're at work, or maybe even when you are with your friends or with your family, to recognize these situations, like, when are you learning very fast, even when you were not good at school, or if you don't enjoy learning. Talent usually, I would say, shows up in an area of your interest or a passion, where you learn very fast.
Yeah.
Maybe how to deal with a problem, how to solve a problem, how to communicate better. There are so many different things, and I will show you later on the 34 categories of talents that Gallup has identified. But one thing to watch is, in your daily life, when you maybe think about your best day at work, when you've learned something very fast, or when you resolve the problem very fast,
Yeah.
go back to that situation, reflect, and maybe even journal on what has happened. How did you learn? What did you learn? What was the problem you wanted to figure out? What is it that you wanted to maybe find out? What was the intention that led you to learn about that? So the first learning is definitely something to watch out for. The next area is excellence. I think this is quite straightforward, but I think especially with us women, I don't know how it was for you, but I always felt like I've never learned enough. I've never done enough to satisfy my demands on myself.
Yeah,
So I've never recognized with when it comes to excellence what were the results that I was producing,
yeah.
and this is
A bit
one
of
of
an
the
imposter syndrome thing, isn't it? I suppose.
exactly.
Yeah,
So this is something to stop and start observing when you produce excellent results. And don't judge them by your own standard, but you can ask your manager, colleagues, maybe even clients, friends, like when really, what are the things that you do really well?
yeah,
What are the yeah,
yeah. Good.
what are the common problems they would come to ask you to resolve, because they feel that you are the go-to expert. Like my friends were coming to not to write a CV for them, but just to have a look and say, yeah, if you have seen this, would you be interested in talking to me and hiring me, for instance? So the excellence is something that I had to learn how to start observing and tracking my results, because it's common for the business, but as individuals, I think in employment we don't necessarily do it. And I also found that sometimes people who are employed and they have to do the media review appraisals, it often feels like a tick of exercise. You
Yeah,
don't pay much attention to that. But when we've changed a relationship with that, and when we do it for ourselves, not for the company or not for the business, but you really look at how well did I apply my talent skills, what have I helped achieve, you start to notice what is the contribution you make in the world of business, but also what is the contribution that can make you feel better about yourself. So you feel a sense of reward, sense of contribution,
yeah,
that what you do really matters. And the last sign I would say is a repeated hunger. So, and what I mean by that is that usually talent shows up in areas where you can wait to do something and again and again, again. And even if you experience failure, and this is something I like to tell my clients, is a failure. When you experience a failure, it doesn't mean that you cannot be successful or you are not talented. You just got to learn how to maybe apply those talents better, or how to engage talents that you were not don't want to say aware, but you were not consciously using in order to overcome some problem or not. And contrary to people's belief is that following your passion should be easy. That if your dream job or dream business is something that is in the area of passion, that it is easy. It wasn't my case. I remember I went for this volunteering to become a coach on a project to become a life coach for young teenage girls, and we were expected to have a training as well. So it was quite a safe way to learn the skills. The night before, I completely panicked, and I came on the course and said, "I'm really sorry, I can't do this," because I was so scared. And later on, I realized that because I have talent responsibility, I really want to deliver on my promise, and I didn't feel at the time that although it was my passion, I felt really called to do it. I didn't manage my talent responsibility really well at the time, and I stepped back. But luckily, I could observe. So the head coach was really fantastic, and she said, "Well, don't just leave it. We want you here. Just observe, help out." And at the end of the course, I found the courage to actually lead a workshop on a vision board. I was never trained, or I never learned how to do a vision board, a workshop for them. But through observing and learning, I was able to put a really nice workshop together, and the girls love it because it was quite creative, easy for them to understand. So something that you really, I would say, want to come away with when it comes to applying your talents and learning about your talents is, if you ever find yourself stuck at work, maybe feeling burnout, feeling that there is something you cannot do, just go back to these three simple signs and try to think, try to reflect. What is it that can help you? What is it that you already have or can do that can help you to overcome the obstacle, and so it feels more joyful and easy, if that makes sense.
You know, your responsibility talent you mentioned. I suppose you could flip that, because that's a little bit of like you sort of saying you had imposter syndrome. And
Yeah.
I sort of got, I get that. I really got what you meant. But I suppose you could also flip it that you will be responsible, because you know that, you know, you'll learn it and you will deliver, and you'll deliver a good job to the best of your ability. So I suppose
Yeah.
you know your talents, how you frame it and tell it to yourself. If yeah. So would you recommend, so there's a lot of observing yourself, speaking to other people, trying to get that feedback, but would you recommend people do the test?
Absolutely. I think that's a very quick way. Yeah, if you don't know where to start, I would say, and we can go to the next page,
Yeah.
would be
And
to
we've had a
really start with
question.
your talent assessment.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
what it really helps you is, and why do I recommend it, is obviously the learning and raising your awareness about your talents is a long journey. Yeah, it's not something you are most likely going to do every single day, because we all live quite busy lives, and it does require a little bit of, I would say, discipline, or maybe commitment and interest, curiosity that you want to invest into knowing yourself. So I would definitely recommend a Gallup test as the first step. I know of some clients who have actually done it in the companies where they worked, but then they didn't do anything else with that. And I think that's really shame, because doing your assessment is just the first step.
Yeah.
So it is a quite, I would say, some people might consider it a long test. Yeah, I think it depends, because the questions are timed. So you've got
It doesn't
to,
take that. I've just done it recently. It took like 20, 25 minutes.
yeah, that's it. But you've got to be very intuitive with your answers. This is why I would say, as far as I know, Gallup really produces, I would say, the most accurate results. And so I took the test back in 2015, and I wanted to show you actually what you can do with it over the time. Yes, so at the time when I quit my managerial job, I was really, I would say, not utilizing the talents in an effective way, because I wasn't executing. So, and as a leader or as a manager, you can imagine that I was very much into leading with strategic talents, learning a lot. And I always felt that I have a very strong, I would say, area in influencing others when it came to either making decisions or activating people into taking action. But obviously, as I worked in operations, I actively worked on developing some of my executive talents. And I've never felt that I am the person who likes to do routine things or to lead by doing. So my way of developing this quite consciously was to how to find and attract the right talent, how to help people grow within their roles, how to activate their potential. So you will see that some of the talents don't change at all. So for instance, like in the top grid, it's called the talent grid. I have talents on the places 10 and 2, which are talent belief and talent responsibility. So this really shows that I really lead through the responsibility quite strongly, and that hasn't changed over the 6 or 7 years. But because I have been quite conscious about to grow my business and to be more effective in my day-to-day work, I realized I cannot do everything by myself. So my best bet is to invest into people, developing people, and arranging not just resources as people, but arranging also when it comes to processes and the way how we function at work. So some of the talents have actually, I would say, have helped me to develop further, and turn them into the strength. So really a beautiful thing about this is that you can, and this is why I said the awareness is quite important. You don't have to do it every single day, but to start with taking the test. I would say book a coach or an expert who can help you translate what this means to you and where you can start. Yeah, because learning about all 34 talents sounds like a lot, and you don't have to learn about all of them, but they are split in three categories. You've got your top 5 talents, then you are moving into your top 10, which are quite your dominant talents. Then you have, and at the end you have lesser developed talents, which people might know as weaknesses. And some of my clients, they go like, yeah, I knew about this, I knew this about myself, what shall I do with this now? Like, I've wasted money just by confirming to what I already know about myself. And that's not the purpose. The purpose is to start digging into, for instance, if you had a talent responsibility in your top 5, just as I do, it will show up differently in a combination of all the other talents that you have, because there are no two people alike. I think Gallup has made a calculation, is something like 1 in 1,000,000 people, I think, I don't know the number exactly, but
Combination.
exactly would have that combination.
Yeah, had some. Sarah said, "Will you be sharing the slides after this?" Yeah, I can share the slides. If you drop me a message, I've got them. And someone else, I don't know if you're going to answer this later, but someone else has asked a question, but this is a really good question. If there are parts of your day job that don't lie within your areas of strength, you still have to do them, how would you suggest you manage this?
That's a very good question. And I think that's the one that is going to require a conversation with your manager as well. But before you go down that path, I think what you can do is, if there are parts of your job that you really don't like and you feel that they are misaligned with your strengths, start with what are the bits that you don't like about that job, and then go back to your top 5 talents and think about, how could I achieve the result that I need to achieve, but differently, my way? And find what are the things that would make it, enjoyable for you. Like, what would be the activities that you could do in order to get the same result, but just do it differently. And then when you have that conversation with your manager, rather than saying, well, I don't like this part of my job, obviously that doesn't give the right signal or the good message. But if you then approach that conversation quite, I would say, skillfully, and say, okay, I've taken my talent assessment, I like more than half of my job, but there are some parts that I'm really not struggling with, but I don't feel I perform best. I found a different way how we could do it, or how we could improve that performance perhaps, or how we could achieve the result, but maybe slightly differently. Would you be open to have a conversation about how we could arrange this? And this is the part of the coaching that I've actually started to do with my clients, so they feel more skilled to identify what are the parts of the job they don't like, and what to do about them. And obviously, if you are not in a position, if you're not a leader or business owner, that you can either delegate it or outsource, then start trying to find a different way. Or you might come to a conclusion that actually this job is not the best fit for your abilities and for your talents, and you might consider finding something better for you that is a better fit.
Oh,
So I hope it helps. So if there are any more questions,
really
yeah,
good.
feel free.
Yeah, do I move to the next slide, or is that the presentation? Sorry.
We can. So I was just curious if there are any more questions, or if we can carry on.
I'll move to the next slide.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so we know how to recognize talents, what to do if you want to get a talent assessment from Gallup, how the report will look like. But now the common question I would get from people I work with: okay, so I've taken the test, now what now? How would this help me? So I think the first thing is, when you look at your talents, and the report from Gallup comes with a guided questions. This is what I like about it. So when you download it, you are not just being told, okay, your talent is responsibility, but they really guide you with a bit nice set of questions to start understanding how does this talent show up. Where we can take part in is starting to connect the talent with the results that we produce. And I think this is what I have often seen And I don't know if it is something common for women or not, but whenever I'm recruiting people and I see CVs, people are not that great at promoting their achievements and their results. They can write a really long paragraph about what they can do and what are the skills, but what I'm often missing is, for instance, okay, I can see that you can do all of these things, but how would that help your department? How would that help your colleagues? How would that help your team? So in order to really, I would say, start building and realizing your own value so you can negotiate better pay or even increase your rates, for instance, if you are in the business, it's very good to start tracking those results and um, connect the connection between or find the connection between these are my talents, this is when I'm being my best, and these are the results I'm producing thanks to my talents. So so you can communicate them very clearly, yeah, because especially at work, I think we are given the targets, every at the beginning of the year, and you know what you are supposed to do and what are the deadlines, but sometimes we don't stop and think and say, yeah, actually I could do this better and this could be done more effectively. Or one of my clients was actually, she was a nurse, and she used to tell me, Adri, I see a different way how we could rearrange the cupboards, but my manager doesn't listen to me. And I know that it would work better because when nurses come in, I know what they need at first. So we have actually discovered that one of her talents was maximizer. So she had a really good ability to find the solutions that would maximize the potential, but she didn't know how to communicate that with the manager. So we really worked on helping her to be very clear about not getting frustrated that the manager doesn't listen to her, but to really learn that, okay, these are the results I can produce. This is how I can help the business, but this is how I'm adding the value. So overall, it really, I would say, helps us not just to be better at what we do, but what I found life transforming for me was that you actually get more energized by doing what you love. And overall, when you enjoy what you do and when you are very good at it, of course, it naturally leads with improved earning potential because people recognize you for what you are good at and you become a go-to expert. And I know this might sound like a fairy tale story or an example, so it doesn't happen overnight. And this is why I was saying at the beginning, start with the test. And I really like that question that was being asked because um, the parts that you like, of course, you want to keep and you want to do more of. But the parts that we don't like, we often get frustrated about. We maybe complain that, there is no change possible. But it starts with us. And it starts with finding maybe a different solution to a problem that I wasn't able to resolve before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh.
Perfect. So I think we are moving towards the end, so we can go to the last slide, if you like. And I'd like to encourage people, whether they want to do it now or not, and they might be thinking, okay, should I invest my time into developing myself, into knowing my talents? I've got, because I'm an activator, I would always say, yes, now is the right time. But I really want you to think, if the time isn't right now for you, imagine what could you achieve and how could you maybe change the way how you feel about your career or your business if you spend more time doing what you love, what you are naturally talented to do. Because the more time and effort we spend on areas, tasks that are out of our talent zone or genius zone, we are depriving ourselves. We've got the less opportunity to actually
Yeah.
utilize, refine, and hone our talents.
Yeah, definitely. Get less work-life joy, don't you? If you're not doing something you enjoy and you're not good at it, then you don't enjoy it. And yeah, it's easy to enjoy something that that you're good at, I think.
It is, and I think the hardest thing comes with realizing or maybe even allowing yourself to do something that you can enjoy. Because I think from even when I was younger, and I always had a vision to do something I enjoy. But when I talked to my parents about it, they were like, well, but work is for getting paid for, for earning income, and it's just something you do. I think there was no one in my life, although I had the choice to choose the career path I wanted. My parents were very encouraging, but no teachers, no one has ever stopped and asked and say, well, what is it? Not even managers at the time. Yeah, I think it wasn't, and this is not to blame the leadership or the managers. I think the times are changing, and I think we realize that we are spending a lot of time at work. So if we do that, why not do it in a way that after work we still have enough energy left for what matters to us, but really take those hours where you spent in your job, whether it's part-time or full-time, doing something that just not brings the income, but something that really brings you alive, so you feel that you had really good experience.
Yeah, brilliant. Is it the next slide, or is that?
I think we are at the end of it, so
All right, I'll take it off then. There we go. That's really, so where can people do the test?
right, so people can do the test directly on the Gallup's website. There are two tests available. I would say there is the top 5 and top 30, and the 30 for the full talent assessment. My recommendation would be to go for the full set of 34 talents. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but I think that extra money that you are going to put into taking the talent assessment, the full combination of your talents, gives a better value. And as the next step, then you can either reach out to me, or if you know somebody in your field that already deals with Gallup, then take that first step. And you don't have to. What I do, for instance, with my clients is that we don't go into full 3 or 6 months coaching right away. I think the first step is for them to start learning and recognizing how their talents show up, clear up in their mind, is this something I want to really do? And then as a next step, we would really agree how long we want to work for, because that part, the question we were answering, how do I change the bits I don't like about my job, that is the most critical. And often we don't see the solutions ourselves. So as a coach, I would usually guide people through finding the answers they were maybe not able to see on their own.
Yeah, brilliant. And I bought the book as well. You can buy a book from Amazon, which actually gave a bit more context and about the talents and how you develop them when you're children, and it was
Indeed. Yeah,
very interesting in the book as well.
there is one on parenting. There is one for generic strengths. There is one for sales as well. So I've recently got, because promotion and selling is something I've got a bit more interested in now. So and I always feel like I'm not good at selling, which is absolutely not true, because I wouldn't have the clients. I would not even sell myself in the interview. So I would, if you are in business, I would really recommend also the book on strength-based selling. It's
Right,
a
I've not read
fantastic.
that one. I will get that one. That is next on my list. But this has been so interesting. Thank you so much for your time. So where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more about you and your business?
I would say the best platform I'm using right now is the LinkedIn. Yeah, so I do have website which is 0 to dreamjob.com, but I'm producing new content and I haven't had the opportunity to put it all together on the website as yet. So if you go on the website, you might not see the talent coaching, I would say, advertised there, because it's on a separate platform, Talented Woman. So I would say the best source is LinkedIn, my personal profile. We also have a business profile, 0 to Dream Job, on both on LinkedIn and Facebook. So I'll be happy to help if I can.
Oh, perfect. Well, it sounds so brilliant. So thank you. So you offer strengths-based coaching, which I just think does sound fantastic and something that will be useful to so many people, and obviously the foundation of a really good life and work for a lot of people. So thank you so much for your time today, Adriana, and giving us a bit of an introduction to how to identify your talents. If anyone's got any final questions, please pop them in the comments. Are you all right if I share the slides if people message
Of
me?
course, indeed, happy to do that. And if people get any additional questions, if somebody is watching from a reply, I'm happy to come back to those. So today or tomorrow. So feel free to drop them there.
And I'll put the replay will be available on my website as well. So thank you so much for your time again. Have a lovely afternoon, and thank you so much to everybody that's watched today as well. Thank you. See you next
Thank you for
week.
having me.
That's all right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.